So in this video I'm going to talk to you about how to make a tree like this on your hexagon. So I've talked about some of the principles involved in an earlier video. This time I'm just going to go straight into how to make them. So the first thing you're going to start with is getting your tree armature. As I explained before, there are plenty of other ways you can make trees yourself or buy trees. But you're going to use these, this is how you do it. So your tree comes flat like this, it's been injection moulded. We have a tab on the side here we're going to cut off. If you don't have a pair of these, a sharp knife will do the same job. Next, there are some moulding lines, as with anything that's moulded on a sprue like this. So we want to get a sharp knife and trim those off. How much time you spend on this is entirely up to you. Keep in mind, up near the tops here, that's going to have the foliage attached to it, so you certainly won't see any of that. Lower down in the trunk you might see it, so it's worth getting off at least the worst bits of it. You at least want to get off this where that tab was attached, and somewhere around here on the side here there's I don't know how well you can see this, but I'll see if I can pull this closer, there's a little ring just there, which is part of the moulding process, so you want to try and disguise that, or remove that as much as you can. So I'm doing this quite quick. I'll be honest, on my earlier trees I spent a lot longer on this, but I have somewhat come to the conclusion that it's slightly wasted effort because you don't really look at the trunk that closely. So that's probably enough what I've done there. You don't want to get it too smooth either. It's good to have some kind of texture, so that, you know, whoever sculpted this has made a reasonable effort to sculpt some tree bark texture in here. We don't want to just shave it all off. In fact, it's a bit higher, I didn't see that. So all the way along here you've got a bit of sprue line. A bit of flash, sorry, is the proper term. Flash is the plastic that slips between the two sides of the mould. Okay. Next we want to try and spread these branches out. So this plastic that I make this from is quite a bendy sort of plastic, so you can see I already bent it to the side. So an initial shape, and because it's quite, well, it's a very 2D shape to start with, you want to do everything you can to spread it out into a third dimension as much as possible, to bring it forward and back. It's good to get these branches kind of flattish because that's the way that trees generally grow. With the branches spreading out on the flat with the leaves there to collect the sunlight. Something like that is fine. You can see these bends are all quite nice. These ones here are probably a bit severe, so it does look a bit odd. You can bend them back a bit. It's a fair bit of flexibility, but obviously don't do it so much that you're actually going to snap anything. And that is probably good enough. Now, you can leave it like this and just glue your foliage on, because obviously it's moulded in a brown plastic. I personally don't like, I find the sort of sheen, that glossy sheen to it, I find objectionable. So I paint mine with a very simple and cheap brown paint. This is burnt umber is the shade I use for this, but any colour of brown will do, doesn't have to be the same one. So I give it a coat with brown umber, let that dry, and you can see it's kind of taken most of the sheen off it. And then dry brush with like a light grey a pale grey on there will just bring out a bit of the bring out the detail of the tree bark. And I mean, generally, a lot of wood is more grey than brown in reality, I think. So yeah, it's not a children's drawing, so it doesn't have to be pure brown and pure green foliage. That's what I do. Then the next thing I want to do is attach this onto your hexagon. So here's one hexagon I cut earlier, and it's best to do this. You could have painted the hexagon, but you don't want to have turfed it yet when you put the tree on. So pick your spot you want the tree to go on. Now, as I discussed in my previous video, you don't want it. We don't want all of your trees to be dead centre, but you want it to be fairly near the centre so you don't overhang too much. So have a look at the shape of it, see if there's any way you can kind of fit it on where it's going to have minimal overhang. So I think somewhere over here I can still achieve it. I'm just going to give that a little push in. Okay, so now I know where my mark is. And then you can use a tool to sort of remove a little bit of polystyrene there, whether it's the tip of a blade or something like that. Better take out too little than too much, and try again. You just want to scoop out enough that the sort of springiness of the foam isn't going to push the tree out. But don't take out so much that it's super wobbly. So that looks good to me. There, and then we're going to get some PVA glue, a good big glob of PVA glue, and put it in there. So you get that now. Okay, there's some craft glue. PVA glue, white glue, whatever you want to call it. Thick stuff. And if I thought ahead I would have left this upside down to sink to the bottom. Here it comes. So a good big splodge of this because you want it to fill that gap. And the only thing you want to avoid is getting it up onto the trunk. If it spreads out a bit onto the foam around it, that's fine, that's not going to cause a problem. But you really want to fill that whole cavity with glue. And I'm afraid PVA is not quick setting, so if you can't get this to balance at all, here I've got it mostly balanced, what I should do is get some books or something to hold it in position. Remember, trees always like to grow up towards the light, so keep your trunk vertical. Even if yours is on a slope like this is one of the great things about these hexagons, is you can have trees on the side of a slope going upwards, which with most kinds of terrain you just can't do. They've always got to be on the flat because they just sit on the base. So yeah, make sure your tree trunk is vertical. Okay, that's it for the moment.